Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and you're watching this on Xanadu Castle. And today, we're going to be talking about some big chonkers. Yeah, some of these really big books that you probably have seen before and went, man, that's going to take me forever to get through. Like, that looks really intimidating to read. Well, yeah, they might be, but the thing is that these are books that I think that sound like something I would really love. Like, these are books that I would love to read, but of course, I don't think I'm going to be able to get around to reading them all this year, but, hopefully next year I'll try to read through some of them, and then, maybe by the end of the year I'll try to read, maybe, one or two of them. We'll see how things go. And as always, you're more than welcome to list off some of the books on your TBR that are considered as a big chonky book. And personally, I consider anything over 600 pages to be chonky, but that's just me. I don't know, maybe some people consider 500 plus to be more, and that's okay. We all have different ways of thinking about it. But for me, I think 600 plus is considered to be chonky. So yeah, let's just get right to it. So first, let's start off with someone that's pretty obviously known for putting out a lot of big chonky books, and that being is Stephen King, one of my all-time favorite writers. And yes, there's still a couple of chunky books that he's put out that I haven't gotten to yet. But I will go out and say that I actually did read The Stand for the very first time this year, and I loved it. But I'll probably talk about that whenever I do my all the books I read within 2024. So, anyways, because he's put out, quite a few, of course I don't want to mention, everything, but I'll talk about the two that I'm most anticipated to read. And those two being, this one right here is, 11/22/63, and yes, this book I've heard a lot of great things about. And of course, I really like the whole idea of, some guy, time traveling back to around, the late 50s, and he has to, stay there for, an X amount of years until, the date, and to see, if he can try to, prevent the assassination attempt of JFK. And I think that's really interesting, and of course, I also do find the whole, learning about the history behind that whole situation to be very fascinating, too. So the fact that he pretty much wrote, a whole, historical fiction kind of thing is very cool. And like I said, I really look forward to this one. In fact, I'm actually thinking about reading this one this year. This is one that's pretty high on the list for me. So, yeah, definitely can't wait to get to this one. And the other one that's also a big, huge chonker is, It. Yeah. Very short name, but definitely not a short book. But yes, there's not a whole lot else I can say about this one that hasn't been said before, but yes, I loved the movies, like the live action adaptations, like the first one they did, I thought was really cool and really creepy as a kid. Of course I watch it now and it's more entertaining and kind of amusing, but I still think it was cool and well done. And then, I've watched the remake part 1, which was really good. I haven't seen part 2 of that one. I don't know why, I just never got around to it. So, yeah, even though I have seen the movies and I basically know, the concepts and everything, there's still a lot of stuff within this book that's done differently or stuff that isn't present at all. So, I'm very curious about reading about all that. And for the next one we're going to be talking about is yet another horror author, but this is one that I haven't read anything that he's done yet. I do own, I think, 3 of his books, but they're the ones that definitely do sound interesting to me. And this one has about 600 and something pages, so it just qualifies as my requirement for chonkiness, and that happens to be Peter Straub with Floating Dragon. I hope you can see this cover okay. There might be a bit of glare, but yes, I freaking love this this artwork here. I think it looks really awesome. It kind of reminds me of something you would see out of a Yu-Gi-Oh card or Magic the Gathering. Yeah, it definitely looks like a trading card artwork, which I think is really cool. But yes, so what this one's about. And keep in mind, I haven't looked up, what it's about in a while, and plus I try not to look up, too much things about these books, because, I try to, avoid spoilers and such. But, yes, from what I remember, is that it basically takes place in a small town, and there's some murderers happening, and then, they just gotta solve the crime. And I think, the main character is, not a police officer, so, he doesn't have, any, special equipment or anything. He's just trying to do everything by, primitive ways. So, yeah, that's what I remember. I could be totally wrong, but I do remember it's about, something like that, and it just sounded really cool. Like, yeah, it may not sound like the most, like crazy unique thing ever, but I'm sure there is going to be, like, some interesting things in here. So, yeah, like I said, it's one that I'm interested in reading, and if you guys have read this one, and just let me know what you think. Like, let me know if you guys liked it or not. But it is still one that does fascinate me. Now, as for the next one, this is going to be the final horror one that I have here. And this one has about 750 pages. I think it's like almost 800, I think. That happens to be Justin Cronin's The Passage, and this is another one that has like a really like shiny cover. And this one doesn't have like a plastic protector thing like I have on all my other ones, which is why they look so glary. But no, this one, yeah, it just looks shiny as it is, which is cool. But yes, so The Passage is basically a post-apocalyptic story, kind of similar to The Stand, but instead of it being like a plague that like wipes out a bunch of people, it's instead a bunch of vampires. Like, fuck yeah! Like, that sounds awesome. Like, that sounds like something I think I would definitely dig into. But, yeah, that's literally all I know about it, but as again, I've heard a lot of very interesting things about this one, so yeah, it's definitely another one that I definitely can't wait to get to, but I should also mention that I also do have the sequel to it, called The 12. This one's not as long, at least it doesn't, like, look like it's as long, but, you know, and obviously I gotta read The Passage first before reading this one, so, but, you know, I figured I might as well mention that, yeah, this is like a, I think there's 3 books in the series. I think there's 3, I want to say. I don't remember what the one that comes after this one's called, so do forgive me on that. But, yes, this one definitely sounds like something that I think I would definitely love. Alright, and next up we got is a historical fiction book that's been getting a lot of buzz lately because of a recent adaptation, which I haven't seen, but it definitely does look really good. And hopefully I will get to it once I'm done reading this big book. And that happens to be, James Clavell's Shogun. And yes, I actually really like this cover. Like, yeah, it's really plain, like, it's just a white background, but I don't know, there's just something nice about the way how they did the, like, the big thick letters and just have a simple image. I don't know, like, sometimes, like, you can do, like, simplistic artwork like that, and it looks great, but then there's other times where people do, and it's really boring. But this is a perfect example of someone that did it where it looks great. But anyways, yeah, like I was saying, there is an adaptation of this that came out recently that looks great. There's actually another one that came out in the 80s that also looks really cool, too. But, yeah, so as for this book, well, you know, I'm not going to go, like, super in-depth about it here, but from what I know, it's basically about a guy who gets stranded in Japan, and he kind of has to, like, relearn, like, everything over there. And, of course, because it is historical fiction, you do get some, you know, interesting, like, history, like, facts about, you know, what Japan was like during that time, but you also do get to learn about other stuff about other countries, too. Of course, the story takes place in Japan, but you do get to know a little bit about, like, other places like Spain and Portugal, because, you know, they did a lot of, like, trading and stuff, so it's going to be pretty cool to learn about all that kind of stuff. And one thing I will say when I do start reading this, and what I've heard from other people, is that, in the middle, somewhere in this book, there is a bit of like an intermission, like kind of like a part 2 sort of thing. So because of that, what people do is that they'll read the first half and they'll take a break from this book. They'll kind of read some other like smaller things, some palate cleansers, and then they'll come back and read the other half, and therefore you're not going to get like burnt out and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably what I'm going to do when I do get around to this one. But yeah, I definitely do look forward to it, because not only does this one sound really cool, but also his other books sound really cool too. Like, for an example, like another one I do have, and this one is split into 2, is Noble House. Yeah, we got book 1 and book 2. So yeah, like you can also get like the original Shogun like this as well, but I know most times you can just get it like all in one. But yeah, I just got these 2 in the 2 because, well, you know, it's another book that I didn't have, and I thought like would be cool to have it. But yes, like I said, eventually I will get around to this and its series, because yeah, he's also put out a lot of chonkers too. So next one we got here is a book from a genre that I've never read a book from, and that happens to be the Western genre. So, knowing that, you could probably might figure out what this book is, as I can't really think of that many Western books that are, like, huge chonkers, but this one right here is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. And of course, I have to comment on that. I love the font and I love the artwork here. I think it's really cool looking, and even like the back is really cool looking too. You know, I'll probably end up like editing like some of the actual pictures in here so you guys can get a better look at it if there's too much glare. But anyways, though, yeah, so I've heard a lot of great things about this book. I've heard that, like, the character writing is, like, absolutely top-notch and amazing, so I definitely can't wait to get around to that. In fact, I actually picked up this book, fairly recently, I want to say, like, 2 months ago, and it is actually kind of high on my, my TBR, not gonna lie. This is one that I'm actually debating on actually reading this year, because it has gotten my interest. But, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Like I said, I'll probably do a video on it or something if I do get around to it. But, yes, like I said, I didn't look too much into it. I know there is an adaptation that did come out, somewhat recent years, but I don't know if people liked it or not. But either way, though, like I said, I'm excited to get to this one. Alright, now, next up, we're going to be talking about some classic books, and, I got 2 of them on here. And this one right here is a very interesting one because it does not look like a chonky book, but it really is. And that happens to be Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. And yes, so obviously I think a lot of people know about the movie that came out in the 40s, I think, or was it the 50s? I forget exactly. But yeah, that big movie there, you know, I've actually never fully watched that movie. Like, I've seen, like, little scenes of it and, like, a lot of references to it, but I've never actually, like, fully watched it from, like, beginning till end. But of course, like, the one scene I know is the part where, like, the one guy there makes that, like, big epic rant towards the main character, who I think is named, like, Ruby or Scarlet or something. I know she has, like, she's named after, like, a red color. I know that. But yeah, like, the big epic rant scene, like, I know that. But yeah, it's that, though, I don't really remember a whole lot else. But I know it is one of those books that takes place in, like, the, you know, before 1900s, so, you know, there's a lot of, like, crazy shit that goes on. The characters go through, like, a lot of bullshit, but, you know, there's a lot of, like, kind of stuff like that's really interesting that I want to, like, read through. And I heard, too, that even though this book is really long, apparently the pacing is, like, really and crazy good, so that'll be really interesting to go through that. But, yes. Also, I gotta say, too, that real quick, that this cover art's actually pretty cool. I kind of like this one. It's kind of nice, so yeah, I was actually kind of glad I found this version of it. Alright, next up for our next classic book we got here is one that is probably, like, one of my favorite looking books out of the ones I have, and that happens to be The Count of Monte Cristo from Alexandre Dumas. And, yeah, I haven't even taken out the seal yet, but obviously when I do read this, I will break it open. But, yes, yeah, no, like, I love the way this looks. It's so, like, bright, shiny, and colorful. Like everything. Yeah, I think this was a Barnes & Noble exclusive, but because Barnes & Noble is only in America, and I am not from America, yeah, I had to buy this one online, but it's okay. It was worth it, because I absolutely love the way it looks. And, of course, you know, it's one of those books that, classic books that I think does sound like it would be really cool and fun to read. And yes, you know, there's, like, probably, like, a bunch of adaptations that were made of this one. I know I've seen one of them when I was a kid, but I don't remember which one I've seen. It might have been one that came out in, like, the 90s or early 2000s or something, but maybe it was even a little older. I don't know. Alright, so next up we're going to be talking about a guy who has put out so many chunky books that if you stacked all of the books that he's ever written, it'd probably be taller than an average person. Even if you're only counting the ones that he wrote when he was still alive, like, it would still be a lot. And that happens to be, yeah, it's Tom Clancy, and this book right here is the Sum of All Fears. But I also have 3 other ones that are also really chunky, and that being Debt of Honor. This one's not as chunky as the other one, but it's still very much so. Like, I think, how many pages are in this one? About, oh yeah, 700. Oh yeah, that's definitely more than enough for being chunky. But they're probably his most chunkiest book that I own, and I think it's actually the most chunkiest one he's ever, like, written. That is The Bear and the Dragon. And yeah, this one is just, like, massive. You know, you could probably use this book for, like, weightlifting. Like, that's, like, how, like, big and heavy this book is. But yes, yeah, when it comes to Tom Clancy, I've only read one book from him, but I haven't actually finished it. I just kind of like stopped with it. I'll bring it over here, but it's not a chunky one. It's The Hunt for Red October. But yeah, I still have my my little bookmark in here because I took a break from it because yeah, I just was not in the mood for reading this, unfortunately. But I do plan on going back to it though, because I will say, when it comes to Tom Clancy books or all like his like properties and such, I actually really like the movies. Like the Hunt for Red October movie with Sean Connery, great. I love that movie. And then Clear and Present Danger and Patriots games, also really, really good. And as for Sum of All Fears, I remember the movie for this one. It had Ben Affleck and Morgan Freeman. I don't remember much about it. I remember it being okay, but definitely not nearly as good as like the ones that came before it. But I have heard that the book version of Sum of All Fears is like considered like one of his best books from according to a lot from some of the Tom Clancy fans that I've spoken to. Apparently a lot of them say that Sum of All Fears is like one of his best, or at least like very high up there. So, you know, that's going to be really cool to read one day once I ever do get around to it. But I really do want to try to finish reading Hunt for Red October before I move on to all of his other stuff. I don't know if I'm going to, like, read them all in order, because I have heard that you can kind of go all over the place. But, yes. But, yeah, I know Dead of Honor is, like, the one that I think it's all about, like, you know, someone being, like, stranded in, like, Japan or something. Or there's, like, it has to do something around, like the ocean of, like, Japan, I think. And then, you know, and as you would expect from Bear and the Dragon, it's, you know, it's about Russia and China, and I know Jack Ryan becomes the president somehow. So, but yeah, you know, it's okay. One little stupid thing I have to mention real quick that always makes me laugh about this book was that when I used to work at a thrift store, I remember like every time we were bored and when there was like nothing to do, we would just look through like all like the different stuff, like the movies and the game section and you know in the book section. We'd always like look through them all, and we would always like make fun of the names or like try to like see like okay like what do you think this thing is about just by going off of the cover or like the name. I remember for me with this one I said The Bear and the Dragon, it's probably about I don't know like it's about like a giant kaiju bear fighting against a giant kaiju like Chinese dragon, like basically like a Godzilla thing. And I'm just like, man, I wish it was kind of about that, but nah, I do think the actual concept of this one does sound interesting though, but I just have to make fun of that. Alright, now as for the final book we got here, this one is actually a fantasy book, which is kind of surprising this is the only fantasy book that I'm mentioning in this video, because, you know, the fantasy genre is known for having a lot of chunky books, like, you know, just for one example, like Robert Jordan, like, have you ever seen his chonkers? Like, goddamn, like, like, they're huge. But anyway, so, yeah, so the final book here happens to be Exiles, from Melanie Ron. Yeah, I think that's how you say it, but yeah. Cool cover, I will say. So, I've had this book for a very long time. In fact, how I actually acquired this book was kind of funny. So, I remember one time at school, we had to, like, take out a book for, you know, for the library, and I chose this because, I don't know, I just thought it looked cool, and, you know, because it was, like, a huge book, I just, like, wanted to, like, try to, like, impress people, being like, yeah, I read this shit. But, of course, like, not long after that, I ended up moving, having to change schools, and, yeah, I forgot to give them the book back. And, yeah, and before anyone is wondering, no, I actually found out that school, they actually got rid of, like, all of their books. So, like, all they have now is, like, tablets for all the kids to lent out, so, yeah. So, yeah, so even if I did try to take this book back, they wouldn't even take it anyways, so. Anyways, though, I just thought that was funny to share. But, yeah, I don't remember a whole lot of what this one's about, unfortunately, but I do know one thing, and this is the one thing that does kind of suck, is that, this book is supposed to be a trilogy, but the third book never came out. Yeah, so we only got 2 books, and the planned third one still hasn't happened. And I think the second book came out in, like, 2002. So, yeah. We're like, honestly, it's almost as bad as, like, George R. R. Martin not putting out the next, Song of Ice and Fire book, honestly. It's exactly like that. And because of that, Yeah, this one's not very high on my TBR, to be honest, which is a shame because, I mean, you know, it looks like a cool book, but yeah, anyways, though, I wish I could speak more about it because it has been a while since I've, like, really, like, looked it up outside of, like, you know, the big delays, but, yeah, maybe if they ever do put out that third book, maybe I might have to get more motivated, but who knows when that will happen. Alright, so that will be the end of this video. So, as always, what are some big chunky books that you have that you haven't gotten around to yet, but you plan on reading sometime soon? And as for me, like, which ones I would consider to be, like, the highest on my TBR? Well, that would be 11/22/63 for sure, and then Lonesome Dove, I think, would be, like, the second. But, of course, I would love to read all of them if I could. Like, if I had enough time in the day, I would definitely try to read, like, every single one. But, you know, that's just not realistic. But eventually, though, I will try to read through, like, as much as I can. But, as always, thanks for watching, commenting, and have yourselves a great day.